You're watching Mailin Politics here on TV Free Baltimore.
Jovani, thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Well, thank you for having me, Natasha. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you.
Yes.
So tell us, Jovani, why are you running?
I'm running because I've seen for too long the leadership in the city take the city in a wrong direction. This is an excellent location. Like, we're right on the port. We're right between DC and Philly, right on the 95 corridor. And there's a lot of opportunity here. And I want to just be able to, it's kind of a selfish reason, I want to be able to raise my children here without feel like I'm being forced out. And I've seen a lot of mismanagement within our city government. Our government likes to steal from the citizens. And my whole mission is to return the city of Baltimore back to the citizens of the city.
So Jovani, what do you see are the real problems in Baltimore City, and how do you think you can change them for the better?
Well, I strongly believe the real issue, or the root cause of our issue, it has been the breakdown of the family. This has led to the crime rates that we see, the corruption that we see within our city government, the levels of economic, the lack of economic opportunities within the city. Because when the family is where you learn your first rule of law, is where you learn your values, you get your ethics and morals from. And because of the breakdown of the family, there's no accountability in the home, which leads to no accountability in the streets, and ultimately no accountability in our city government.
So we have a historic trend now in Baltimore City with 7 Black Republicans running for city council,
Yes.
you included, and 4 others. We have 2 women. We have a Black Republican woman for mayor and a Black Republican woman running for Congress in the 7th District, Kim Klacik. When did this trend start, and why do you think this trend is happening, and why is this so important?
Well, first off, if we know anything about Baltimore, Baltimore is also known as the city of first. So it just naturally makes sense for this trend to actually start here. But Black and Republican isn't really anything new. I mean, Blacks generally voted Republican before the 1960s as a basis of our conservative values. And that trend, as people are waking up and are becoming more aware of the effects of government and what each party stands for, and the fact of individual liberty and freedom, I think more Black people especially will, get hip to the game. We'll see them see a lot of Black people actually come back over to the Republican Party.
So you would say that you see this trend progressing even more past November, because as I understand, you literally walked away from the Democratic Party a couple of years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was growing up, what I learned about the parties was, when I asked my mom, what is the difference between Democrat and Republican, the only thing that was told to me was the Democrat Party is for the Black people and the Republican Party is for the rich. Now, I was Black and I'm not rich, so it just made sense of which party at that point I was going to be affiliated with. But then once I started evaluating and really understanding what each party stood for, that's when I really had to check myself and say, hey, I'm more conservative and I actually more aligned with the values of the Republican platform. And I understand a lot of people don't represent the Democratic platform well, and others don't represent the Republican platform well. But the values of the platform more aligned with who I am as a conservative. So that's why I'm more aligned with the Republican Party.
Now, I understand you also are part of the #Walkaway Rescue America from Left-Wing Antifa with Brandon Struck. You spoke at this event.
Yes.
Can you tell us about this event? Was there any Black Lives Matter protesters there where there was a problem? I want to know, as your perspective as a Black man, how can we bring the Black community together, and why was it so important for you to speak at this event?
Brandon Strzok came here to kick off the Rescue America rallies, which we're very grateful for, because again, Baltimore is the city of first, and you see how that walkaway movement, the Rescue America movement, has really grown to now. I think there was like 3,000 or at least 1,000 or so in Beverly Hills, which was amazing to see. But it's important really just to start having the conversations. Black Lives Matter did show up at that protest, but there were conversations had. And another event that I spoke at was the We Back Blue. And at that event, the Black Lives Matter, actually, the protesters actually joined in with our movement. So the thing is that we really just have to start having open dialogue. It can no longer be taboo to talk about politics or religion.
So how can we get the economy booming in your area again, and how can we get people back to work?
Well, our city is struggling right now because the taxes are so high that it's not economically positive to open and run business within the city. Now, we have so many talented individuals, so many young entrepreneurs, and so many great ideas that can come from the city, but we have to have an economic structure that allows for that to thrive. And that really starts with our tax base and where we're actually giving tax incentives to. So right now, only the well-connected developers really get those tax incentives, and they're needed because the tax rate is so high. However, it doesn't make sense for someone living on Penn North to pay more in their property taxes than the newest $1 million development down in Canton. So we have an economic disparity there, and to create the jobs and to allow for the free market to really thrive, we have to look at our tax structure and lower the tax rate for our citizens, so we can have owners and also business owners within the city to reflect the economic and entrepreneurial spirit that already lives here.
How can we also fix the infrastructure in your area as well?
Oh, it goes to the same. It's about returning the city back to the people. I mean, right now the city is holding on to so many of these vacant and abandoned lots, whether it's due to tax reasons or the city just owns the properties themselves. But these properties just need to be offloaded. They don't need to be in the city's hands. They need to be given back to the public because we can solve other challenges such as homelessness. There's no reason that we should have so many homeless when we have so many vacant and abandoned houses. The city is just holding on to a lot of these properties and a lot of these places. For what reasons? Who knows? But it doesn't cause anything positive to happen as a result. It just causes more blight. It's like it's waiting for it's trying to drive the city, the lowest and the most vulnerable out.
Now, I understand you have children of your own.
Oh, yes.
And as you know, the schools had to be closed due to COVID-19. Do you believe that we need to reopen our schools in the fall?
I do believe we should have a plan to reopen schools, whether it be on a limited basis or more towards the full time, because the children have been, least affected. They're the most healthy among us, as well as if we really look at the overall numbers of the coronavirus, it's really runs similar to the flu. Now, my heart goes out to anyone who has lost a loved one due to COVID-19. And there's no bringing a life back for whatever cause of death, whether it be an accident, the flu, COVID-19, or any other thing. But I think we're at a position where we can say, hey, we've seen the numbers, we have the data, we're testing more, we have more awareness of how COVID is spread and the effects of it. I think it's time to say, hey, looking at the risk, we can open schools.
Now, as you know, the mail-in ballot situation during the primary here in Maryland was a mess.
Yes.
You were very fortunate that you ran unopposed, so
yes.
you didn't have to deal with that problem.
Yes.
But if Governor Hogan and the State Board of Elections agrees to have mail-in ballots for the general, are you concerned about your election in November? I
think there's always a concern, regardless of whether it's mail-in or in-person voting, because it's just there's the way the Postal Service has worked, and just recently, mail has really not been delivered. So to rely on that for the results of a free and fair election, it does seem to be a bit oppressive. Now, there have been cases where there's been ballot harvesting and some other things. I just purchased a home and I actually received a ballot for someone who was deceased So there's the election rolls that do need to be cleared as well. So there just needs to be some level of accountability within the voting system. So actually requesting the ballot, I think is a good method, but not just this universal, we're just going to send it to everyone type measure, because that just opens up the floodgates for election fraud.
Now, between you and your opponent, why should the American people vote for you, and how can we follow you?
Well, I'm only looking for the votes of the Baltimore city, of city residents. But
Americans nationwide are looking at you too.
We're all Americans here, though. But here's the thing: recycling is good for the environment, but not good for our politicians. Nick Mosby is not a new face to city government, and based on the relationship between him and his wife being the state's attorney, I do believe that creates a serious conflict of interest. Now, if we want democracy really truly to be in action, if we want things to change for a positive in Baltimore, I do think I think it's clearly time for some new faces, fresh ideas, and ideas that actually work for our residents of Baltimore City.
And how can our audience members and your voters follow you? And please tell us of any upcoming events that are happening.
Absolutely. So you can visit my website, www.jp4bmore.city. That's www.jp4bmore.city. You can also follow me on Twitter at Mr. JP is great. So that's at MRJPISGREAT.
Just on a side note, Jovani Patterson was at the MC Veterans event this past Saturday, where he gave out hand sanitizers, bleach, men's and women's clothing to homeless veterans, as well as veterans that are suffering from PTSD and substance abuse. Thank you so much, Jovani Patterson, for coming in, and we hope that you come in again, and we wish you the best of luck on your race.
Thank you so much, Natasha.
Thank you.
You're watching Mailin Politics here on TV Free Baltimore.